What's the new hotness to review for today? Council of Four. Four? Odd number. I don't know, 4 fills me a little bit with dread. There's not many things I can think of that actually suit the number 4, were great with 4. I don't know, give me a few examples. Okay, actually, yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, can we do any more? A little bit retro, but, oh well, it was entertaining, so yeah, I'll go with that, number 4. Ugh, okay, not so great. Can you do any better than that? That's cheating. That's cheating. We don't know if that's any good or not yet. Okay, and come on, one last try. Give me another. No, stop before you get any further. Hey folks, thank you for tuning in to another Broken Meeple review. I'm Luke Hector, and this is Council of 4 from Cool Mini or Not and Cranial Creations. To be fair, Cranial Creations is kind of like the main people actually doing the game, and Cool Mini or Not have essentially just souped it up with their usual aesthetic quality. In Council of 4, you are merchants trying to expand your empire across the 3 different kingdoms. Each kingdom has its own council, and there's also the queen who has her own council. In order to sway your favour with them, you need to collect cards of the various colours, which are represented by the individual council members of 6 different coloured families, but you also need to have a bit of money on hand, because if you can't sway them with politics, then you can always flip them a few quid every now and then. Once you have got these permits that allow you to build in the various cities on the map, then you flip those permits and build and put your merchants, in those cities. By doing so, you chain city bonuses across the map, providing they're linked up by roads. That's pretty much the gist of the game. You carry on until you've got your 10 merchants out. There are various ways to score points by either chaining certain cities or getting certain permits, but you'll be trying to, keep your money in good stead so you can afford to sway council members and buy other things and sway the Queen's favour now and again. And you'll also want to collect servants who allow you to perform various shenanigan quick actions or allow you to take multiple turns. And of course, let me guess, at the end of the game, person with the most points wins.
Of course!
Now, of course, the first thing that you have to mention with any game by Cool Mini or Not is the component quality. The original version of this, I believe, came out about 2-3 years ago, and it, well, looks pretty bland, let's put it that way. It was, from what I read, it was regarded quite highly, but it was mainly released overseas, not many people get hold of it, and so Cool Mini or Not and Cranial Creations have teamed up in order to bring this now to a US and English market. Of course, it's now been souped up to have a component quality so that it really, strikes on the table, and it does. You've got big sculptured miniatures for each of the different family of council members in the different colours. The different colours kind of, make the sculpts look a little weird at times compared to just having them all grey, but, at least it's a bit of colour and it's not like I'm going to paint them anytime soon anyway. The board looks nice and vibrant and colourful, the cards themselves are decent quality and colourful. It all looks pretty striking on the table, and more than it really needs to for a game that's, reasonably light, pretty quick, and, not exactly having the greatest theme ever. It's sort of pseudo-medieval merchant trading. Yay. So what a theme. But the overproduction does work against it in one or two ways. Firstly, if you want miniatures and all this artwork and double-sided board and everything, cost. This game can fetch a fair pretty penny, and you gotta worry about that, because for a game that says on the box 40 to 70 minutes, you're not talking a long game. And even though we'll get on to more of the strategy later, there's a little bit of thought in it, but it's not like the hardest thing to work with. You think that for that price tag, you're probably maybe overpaying for a game of this nature. Secondly, as good as the quality is, and the fact you've got miniatures, it means that the setup and takedown time is kind of extended. As with all Cool Mini or Not games, you've got the plastic mould in there where all the miniatures sit. Each of you has a big one that literally is there only to represent your colour. Why? You've got a player mat that has your colour on it. Why do you need the miniature? Waste of money. But you've also got all the 10 little merchants in their own individual little bits. And then you've got the council members in their own individual bits along with the queen. And on top of this, you've got to set up the cards, you've got to set up the city tokens, you've got to set up, the piles of servants and that, and the track as well on the side with the coins and nobility. And one thing I've noticed is that it seems to take you about a third of the time to set up and take down this game as it does to actually physically play it. And that's not including the time it takes to teach it. I'd swear, actually, with the teaching included, you're probably taking half the time to set up, teach, and take this game down that you are actually physically playing it. Now, if that's okay with you, fair enough. For me, it's a little bit of a bugbear because, well, let me give you an example. Splendor. Very light, very simple Euro game. Has barely any components in it at all, just poker chips and a bunch of cards. You can set that game up in literally about 2 minutes. Just stack up the tokens, lay out some nobles, shuffle 3 decks of cards, lay some out, that's it, job done. You're ready to go. And teaching Splendor takes, less than 5 minutes anyway. There's not many rules in that game. And so when Splendor takes about 30 to 45 minutes, you're getting a decent amount of game for the short amount of time it takes to set up, take down, and teach it. With this one though, where it says 40 to 70 minutes, that's actually reasonably accurate. I'm surprised by this. The longest I've seen this game go is an hour and a half, and that's with first-time players with some slowness. The game I played last night, in fact, had us go for about an hour and a quarter, and that was with 4 of us, 3 new people again, but I was more comfortable teaching it by the time we got round to that time, so, the teaching was a lot quicker, but still, you're talking, probably about 60 to 90 minutes for a typical game of this, and that's a good length, particularly for me, when this sort of theme doesn't really appeal to me as such. The problem is, when you're playing a game that's fairly short, and shorter than most people expect this to be, when they look at the box and all the grandiose, detail with the miniatures and that, the fact that it takes you a good third of that time to actually set up, take down, and teach it is kind of a little bit disconcerting. You feel like you need to play this twice in a row to get your time's worth for, on a typical game night. Because by the time you've gone, all right, we've played it, and, now we got to put it away again. Wow, we took a while doing that, didn't we? So it's a minor nitpick, but I've noticed that, with some games you can get them out, teach them nice and quick, and get going. This one takes a little bit of extra time because you've got to put the miniatures in the little bits, and you've got to get them out and set the council members up and all that. So it takes a little bit of extra time, possibly a little bit too much time for how long the game is. But it's quick enough that you could probably play 2 games of this in a row if you were inclined to on a night, so it's not all bad, and like I say, it's a minor nitpick. Graphic design on the whole is pretty solid. The iconography is simple to work out. You've got the player aid in front of you, which is pretty flawless actually. Gives you all the details about what cards and money you need in order to do the various election actions, and it tells you what actions you can do, what quick actions you can do, and it's pretty self-explanatory what most of the icons are, whether they're victory points, servants, coins, the lot. There's very little ambiguity in this game, in the rulebook, or even on the board. It's a nice, simple affair to get stuck into. Not quite say, well, I don't know, you could possibly find this in a game cafe environment, because it wouldn't take too long to read through the rulebook and then sort of get started, because once you know the actions, that's the crux of the game. There's only 1 or 2 little small worlds you need to be aware of, but other than that, the general gist, you could probably teach yourself this in not too long a time. It's just the fact you need to explain it to everybody. But that doesn't mean that the game is autopilot. There's plenty enough to do in terms of your actions, because you've got to think, right, well, I could build in all the different colour cities and just chain tons of bonuses off. And it's a great feeling to actually have this huge network of bonuses that's like, oh, I get stuff, fantastic. But you could decide, I'm going to space out, not care about the chaining, and go for the colour cities. I'm going to build in all the yellows, or the blues, or the purples. And in doing so, you'll get bonus points for doing so. But I seem to find that it's very common for people to aim straight for the lowest one. Because what you have is different ranking points for the different colour cities, because one's got 2, blue has got 2, orange has got 3, purple's got 4, and yellow's got 5. And they're worth progressively higher points. Blue's only worth 5. But when you get one of those, you also take one of the queen favour tiles as, descending order of importance. And the top one's worth 25. So most of the time people are gun-hoing for that blue one, because even though the blue's only worth 5, it's 25 on top of that. That's 30 points. In order to get 30 points from another selection of tiles, you need to get something like the purples, which require you to get in 4 cities, and then get the next queen tile, because then that would give you 12 plus 18, for example, and gives you 30. So it seems a little bit powerful to grab that blue one nice and quick. Of course, everybody's thinking this, so you get a little bit of competition, but we've noticed that not many people really care about going for the 5 yellows. That doesn't tend to happen very often. But it differs between game to game. And of course, there's no way I've played this enough to worry about like game balance or anything like that. People have got different opinions, but the one thing I'm noticing that has me in a little bit of disarray is with the bonuses you can get. I've played games where I've chained gold, chained victory points, and chained servants and chained cards. I've tried all of them. I mean, granted, you get a little bit of everything during the game, but I've always tried to focus on a specific aspect. Coins, I get obliterated. If you don't get the cards, and there is a bit of luck of the draw in which cards you get out of the deck, but if you don't get enough cards, then you're spending money way faster than you can possibly earn it by permit tiles and chaining buildings alone. If you chain victory points, you get quite high up on the score track, but if you're not getting anything else on top of the victory points, you find that by the late game you reach a bit of a sort of deadlock, and it's like, oh, I don't have enough cards, I don't have enough money, but I did have a lot of points, but now suddenly you're getting overtaken. So you've got to be quite quick if you're going to go that strategy. The two that seem to work 99% of the time are cards or servants. If you gung-ho for a ton of cards, then you always have probably at least 3, if not 4, for a particular council, which means that you're paying very little gold. So the gold that you get from permit tiles or the old city is more than enough for you for the survive on, and cards are extremely useful, particularly if you grab a wild. Costs you an extra gold to use it. Whoopie-doo, it's a wild, it's awesome. And of course, luck of the draw getting out of the deck. So I've done very well with cards, and won a game or two with it. But my god, with some of those card games, those games where I was gunning for cards, but mainly the strategy that I see winning a lot is servant spamming, because the servants have there's a way that you can spend 3 servants to get an additional action. So you can do 2 main actions on a turn. That's powerful whenever you get that, because it means you're speeding through the game a lot faster than everyone else. But if you are constantly getting servants from those cities, you are constantly taking second main actions on your turn. So whereas others are only taking 1, you, for the vast majority of the game, are taking 2. There's a lot you can achieve with those extra turns compared to other players. And I'll admit, every time that I have played a game or watched a game where someone has gone mad on servants, because you don't always get the chance, it depends where the city bonuses are, because sometimes you can't chain that much at once because they're all scattered everywhere. So there is a little bit of flexibility in that. But anytime someone's gone mad on servants, they've obliterated other players. I did the same thing last night, in fact. I went mad for servants. I was getting more servants than I could physically spend, and that's with me playing 3 servants on almost every turn. I was just getting so many of them, and it just meant I could do so much more. So even though I started off lagging at the back to begin with, I then just went woof and like steamrolled the end game. Got all my merchants out miles before anyone else did, just had more to do, and it put a little bit of downer on the other players because they just didn't feel like they had enough options. Now, of course, like I say, this is just from my perspective. Some people, have come back either agreeing with this or disagreeing with it. I'm not going to say the game's broken or anything, because, you need to play this game like 50 times to even begin to come up with that kind of scenario. But it's just something that I've noticed, that servant spam tends to be quite strong. You do, however, have luck of the draw with the cards. You do have the fact that the city bonus tiles are scattered randomly, so you might not always have the ability to chain that much in a row. And I like the fact that the double-sided board is very different. One has a lot more route connections to the cities, and one has dead ends and much fewer routes. I much prefer that side of the board, the B side as I call it, because I think that forces you to be more intelligent with what bonuses you chain and what cities you go for. I think that the A side, the sort of beginner variant, is just a little bit too flexible. Like, you can go pretty much wherever you like and you'll be getting something. I like the other side, but, I take it or leave it. I don't mind either way. Now with the gameplay, the turns are pretty quick and downtime to start with is pretty short. The turns are quick. You have one action and an optional quick action. It goes round in turn and it just keeps going and going until somebody ends the game. To begin with, turns are really, really quick because you'll draw a card and then you'll probably jiggle with the council ranking, elect a new councillor. You might just grab a permit, you might just put a merchant down, job done, get a bonus. To start with, turns are super fast. It does kind of get a little bit more exponentially longer as the game goes on, because as you're putting these merchants down, you're chaining city bonuses from all the other cities that are connected to you. So whereas at the start of the game, you might put 1 or 2 guys down, it's like, cool, I get a card and a servant. by the time you get to the end, your turns are taking a little bit longer because on top of thinking about what you're going to do, and the decision making does ramp up as the game progresses, you end up having a turn where it's like, righty, I'm going to put a merchant there. Right, let's see, I need a card, money, servant, oh, another servant, 3 victory points, 2 money, rise up on this nobility track. Right, got all that? Good. Right, I'm going to spend some servants and get an additional extra turn. I'll put another merchant down. Right, let's see, I need a card, servant, money, 2 victory points, another money, another servant. It can get a little bit annoying for other players when you're constantly there chaining up bonuses. And it works both ways, other players will be doing that, unless they're not doing particularly well, in which case they hate your guts by the end of this game. So it's one of those ones where, the turn length, the downtime gets longer and longer, but never to the point where you're sat there bored. This is quite a quick game, both in downtime and in length, and that's a plus point, one to commend it for, because in a day and age where Euros are all about 3.5 hours long and they must be monsters with tons of downtime, it's refreshing to actually get something that's actually, a little bit quicker on the uptake, as most games are. So overall, for the most part, I like Council of 4. I don't really care much for this theme. I mean, it's not exactly a strong theme. You're merchants trading across cities. It could be pretty much any setting you like. And it's quite a mismatch of various characters they got here. I mean, one council member looks like a pope, and one of the characters looks more like a pirate. It's kind of odd. But, in general, the game has a lot going for it. It looks the part. If you're willing to pay that high price tag, though, that is the caveat. It does look the part on the table and has been well produced. It is easy to learn and easy to get into, despite the relatively high setup time in terms of setup and teach and takedown compared to how long the game is. But the fact that the game is about 40 to 90 minutes absolute tops, and usually about 40 to 70 is actually pretty accurate, that's good going for a game that, I would feel, would well overstay its welcome if it went above 90 minutes. It's refreshing to get a game that is much shorter in that regard. That being said, the gameplay is decent, but it's not... I didn't find it too engrossing or too much fun, in a sense, because each game starts to feel a bit the same. What do you want to do? Do you want to gun for a type of city, or do you just want to chain bonuses? There's only so many different paths to victory you can really aim for, so it's more a case of, well, just let's have a look at where everybody else wants to build, and if possible, try and avoid them because it costs more in order to do that. So I'm not sure about the replay value as such. I feel like after a bunch of games, you'll start seeing the same stuff happen, the same, possibly the same strategies winning, I don't know, but it's kind of, I don't know, I've played it a bunch of times and, I want to sort of hang on to it and try it a bit more, but I don't see this going the distance maybe like a year later. I feel like I'll play it a bunch of times and be like, yeah, that was good, but now I'm kind of done. It's not one that I think will last. So with Council of 4, personally, I still like it, but I would probably only in max give it about a 6. 6 for me personally. Meh. Above average. I think the game is decent. I think a lot of people are going to go quite mad for it because the length's good, it looks good, and for Euro fans, I think you're going to enjoy this one as well. So I do urge you to give it a look, give it a try. But because of that price tag, I would maybe advise let someone else show you it first. It's a lot of money to invest in a game that is uncertain whether it's going to win you over or not, so particularly when there are other Euro games that take slightly shorter time, still don't necessarily have a theme attached, but are also just as fun and don't cost anywhere near as much. So that's about wraps it up for this Council of 4 review. If you like what you see, then please subscribe to the channel, the podcast, support the Patreon, and, just take care, have fun gaming, and remember, no matter whether you're trading in my city or your city, still only a game. Take care, and I'll see you next time.